Hello, my friend. Welcome back to Learn English Daily. I'm Alex. I'm really happy you're here today. Can I ask you something? Have you ever wanted to speak to someone in English, but you didn't know how to begin? Maybe you knew many words. Maybe you understood English quite well. But when the moment came, your mind suddenly became quiet. You wanted to say something? Anything. But nothing came out. If that has ever happened to you, you're not alone. In fact, I think almost every English learner has experienced this. And today, I'd like to talk about something that seems very small, but it can completely change the way you communicate. We're going to talk about starting conversations. Not long conversations, not difficult conversations. Just the first few words. Because sometimes the hardest part isn't speaking English. The hardest part is saying the very first sentence. I remember something that happened a few years ago. I was waiting in line at a small coffee shop. There was a man standing in front of me. He looked at the menu. Then he looked at me. He smiled. And he said, "Looks like I always order the same thing." That was it. One simple sentence. Nothing special. But within a minute, we were talking about coffee. Then about work. Then about travel. A few minutes later, our drinks were ready. We smiled, said goodbye. And that was the end of the conversation. It lasted less than 5 minutes. But I never forgot it. Do you know why? Because he didn't start with an interesting story. He didn't ask a difficult question. He didn't try to impress me. He simply noticed something around him, and he said it out loud. That's how most conversations begin. Not with something amazing, with something simple. I think many English learners believe they need perfect English before talking to people, but that's not true. Most native speakers don't expect perfect English. They expect a friendly person, someone who smiles, someone who is interested, someone who is willing to talk. That's all. So today, I don't want you to think about speaking perfect English. I want you to think about being comfortable enough to say one sentence, just one, because one sentence often becomes two. To become 5, and before you know it, you're having a real conversation. Here's something interesting. The best conversation starters are usually about things both people can see. Imagine you're standing in a cafe. You don't need to invent a topic. The topic is already there. You can look around. Maybe the cafe is busy. Maybe the music is nice. Maybe the coffee smells wonderful. Maybe someone is waiting for their order. Real conversations often begin with real life. That's why small talk feels so natural. You're simply sharing the moment. Let's imagine we're standing together in a coffee shop. We're waiting for our drinks. The place is full. People are talking quietly. You look around, you smile, and you say, "Busy today, isn't it?" Try saying that with me. Busy today, isn't it? One more time. Busy today, isn't it? Good. It's a very simple sentence. But listen to what usually happens next. The other person smiles. Yeah, it really is. And just like that, the conversation has already started. Now, maybe you notice something else. The smell of fresh coffee. You take a deep breath and say, "It smells amazing in here." Can you repeat that? It smells amazing in here. Again, it smells amazing in here. Perfect. Notice something. You're not asking difficult questions. You're simply sharing what you notice. That feels natural. And people usually respond naturally to, maybe they say, "It does. They make great coffee. That's why I come here." Now the conversation is moving by itself. You don't have to push it. You only have to open the door. I think that's a beautiful way to think about conversations. You're not building a house. You're only opening a door. The other person decides if they want to walk through it. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. And that's completely okay. Not every conversation becomes a friendship. Not every conversation needs to last 10 minutes. Sometimes 30 seconds is enough. Sometimes one smile is enough. And sometimes, the confidence you build from one short conversation stays with you for years. Can I tell you about another moment? I was sitting on a train. A woman came over and smiled politely. She asked, "Is this seat free?" "Of course," I said, "yes." She thanked me and sat down. For a few minutes, neither of us spoke. Then the train stopped for a while. She looked out the window and quietly said, "I hope we're not delayed." I laughed. So do I. That was all it took. Soon we were talking about travel, about our favorite cities, about places we still wanted to visit. Again, the conversation started with one simple sentence. Nothing complicated, nothing planned, just a shared moment. Maybe that's why I like small talk so much. It reminds us that conversations don't have to be perfect. They only have to be human. I know some people say they don't like small talk. They think it's boring. But I see it differently. Small talk is like the first page of a book. You don't stay on the first page forever, but without the first page, you never discover the rest of the story. The same is true when meeting people. Every friendship, every business partner, every colleague, every neighbor, every interesting person in your life was once a stranger, and almost every stranger becomes familiar in exactly the same way, with a simple hello, with one easy question, or with one small comment about the world around you. So today, let's stop trying to sound impressive. Let's try to sound real, because real conversations are never perfect. They're full of little pauses, little smiles, simple words, and that's exactly what makes them feel natural. Before we continue, I'd like you to do something with me. Take a slow breath, relax your shoulders, and remember something important. You don't need to know thousands of English words to start talking. Sometimes, you only need one sentence. And today, we're going to practice many of those sentences together. So by the end of this episode, starting a conversation will feel much easier than it does now. Let's keep going. You know, when people hear the words small talk, they sometimes think it's not important. They think it's just talking about the weather. It's just talking about coffee. It's just a few simple sentences. But that's exactly the point. Small talk isn't supposed to change someone's life. It's supposed to make people feel comfortable. And when people feel comfortable, real conversations begin. Imagine you're walking into work on a Monday morning. You see one of your coworkers. You've seen each other many times before. You smile. Now, what could you say? Many English learners freeze at this moment. They think, I need to say something interesting. But you really don't. You can simply ask, how was your weekend? Let's say it together. How was your weekend? One more time. How was your weekend? That's one of the most common questions in English. People ask it every Monday, and the answer doesn't need to be exciting. Someone might say, it was nice. I stayed home. I visited my family. I went to the beach. Or maybe, I didn't do much. Every answer is perfectly normal. Now imagine your coworker asks you the same question. How would you answer? Maybe you could say, I just relaxed at home. Can you repeat that? I just relaxed at home. Again, I just relaxed at home. Simple, natural, and very common. You don't need an exciting weekend to have a good conversation. Sometimes people worry that their life is too ordinary. But ordinary conversations are what bring people together. Now let's imagine it's Friday afternoon. Everyone looks a little happier. You walk into the office kitchen. Someone is making coffee. You smile and say, "Got any plans for the weekend?" Repeat after me. "Got any plans for the weekend?" Again. "Got any plans for the weekend?" That's another wonderful conversation starter. Notice something. You're asking about the future this time? People enjoy talking about things they're looking forward to. Maybe someone says, "I'm visiting my parents." Another person says, "I'm going hiking." Someone else laughs and says, "I'm going to sleep all weekend." You'll hear answers like that all the time. And every answer creates another opportunity to talk. Maybe you reply, "That sounds nice." Or, "I've always wanted to try that." Or simply, "Enjoy your weekend." Conversations don't need to be long. They just need to feel natural. Now, let's leave the office for a moment. Imagine you're waiting at a bus stop. There's another person standing nearby. You both look up at the sky. Dark clouds are everywhere. You smile and say, "Looks like it might rain." Let's practice together. Looks like it might rain. Again, looks like it might rain. You didn't ask a question. You simply shared an observation. That's something native speakers do all the time. The other person might smile and answer, "I think so." "I forgot my umbrella." "I hope not." And just like that, you're talking. Here's another situation. It's winter. You finally walk inside after being outside for 20 minutes. You take off your jacket. Someone looks at you. You laugh and say, "It's freezing out there." Repeat after me. "It's freezing out there." One more time. "It's freezing out there." Can you hear how natural that sounds? Nobody thinks. What an interesting sentence. But that's exactly why it works. It's real. It's something everyone understands. Real English is often very simple. Sometimes we imagine native speakers using difficult words. But listen carefully when people speak. Most conversations are built with easy vocabulary. The difference isn't the words. The difference is confidence. Let's imagine one more scene. You're standing in line at a supermarket. The line isn't moving. Everyone is waiting. You look at the person behind you and smile. "Long wait today." Can you repeat that? "Long wait today." Again, "Long wait today." Notice that you didn't complain. You didn't sound angry. You simply described the situation. That's an important part of small talk. We share the moment, not the frustration. There's a difference. Positive energy makes people feel safe. Negative energy usually ends the conversation before it begins. That's why I always try to notice something pleasant first. Maybe the music, maybe the weather, maybe the smell of fresh bread, maybe someone's friendly dog. There is almost always something you can talk about. Sometimes people ask me, "Alex, what if the other person doesn't answer?" That's a good question, because it happens. Not everyone wants to talk. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're thinking about something else. And that's okay. Don't take it personally. Small talk is like knocking on a door. Sometimes someone opens it. Sometimes they don't. But that doesn't mean you should stop knocking forever. Every conversation is new. Every person is different. The more you practice, the more comfortable you'll become. And here's something interesting. When you stop worrying about saying the perfect sentence, you actually become easier to talk to. People enjoy conversations that feel relaxed, not perfect, relaxed. So next time you're in a cafe, or on a train, or waiting in line, don't ask yourself, "What's the perfect thing to say?" Ask yourself, What's one simple thing I notice right now? Start there, because that's exactly where real conversations begin. You know, some of the best conversations happen when we least expect them, not because we planned them, not because we prepared the perfect sentence. They happen because we simply say something. I remember going to a friend's birthday party a few years ago. The room was full of people. Some were talking, some were laughing, some already knew each other. I only knew one person. Have you ever been in that situation? You walk into a room, everyone seems busy, and suddenly, you don't know where to stand. You don't know who to talk to. For a moment, you think about checking your phone, just so you don't look awkward. I think we've all done that. I certainly have. That evening, I picked up a glass of juice and stood near the food table. A man walked over. He smiled, and he asked, "How do you know the host?" That was the entire beginning of our conversation. Let's practice that together. How do you know the host? Again, how do you know the host? It's such a simple question, but it's perfect for parties. Everyone has an answer. Maybe they're a friend. Maybe they're family. Maybe they work together. Maybe they went to school together. The conversation starts naturally. No pressure. No difficult vocabulary. Just curiosity. A few minutes later, another guest joined us. She smiled and said, "I love your jacket." That small compliment changed the feeling immediately. Compliments are wonderful conversation starters. People enjoy hearing something kind, not something exaggerated. Just something genuine. You could say, "I like your shoes." "I love your backpack." "That's a nice watch." Or simply, "I like your outfit." Let's practice, "I like your outfit." Again, "I like your outfit." Notice how easy that is. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're simply noticing something positive. And people usually remember kindness much longer than perfect grammar. Now, imagine you're sitting at a large table during dinner. Someone sits beside you. You smile, and you ask, "Have you been here before?" Let's say it together. Have you been here before? One more time. Have you been here before? Maybe they're visiting for the first time. Maybe they've been coming every year. Either way, the conversation has already begun. That's what I love about small talk. It removes the pressure. You don't have to entertain anyone. You don't have to tell amazing stories. You only have to be present. Now let's leave the party. Imagine it's Saturday morning. The weather is beautiful. You're taking a walk through your neighborhood. You see one of your neighbors watering some flowers. You smile. Your garden looks great. Can you repeat that? Your garden looks great. Again, your garden looks great. Simple compliments work everywhere, not only at parties. People enjoy knowing that someone noticed their effort. Maybe your neighbor smiles and says, "Thank you. We've been working on it." Then perhaps they ask, "Do you like gardening?" And suddenly, you're having another conversation you never expected. Here's another moment. You see someone carrying boxers into the house next door. It looks like they're moving in. Instead of walking past, you smile and ask, "Did you just move in?" Let's practice, "Did you just move in?" Again, "Did you just move in?" If the answer is yes, you might say, "Welcome to the neighborhood." Or, "Let me know if you ever need anything." Repeat after me. "Let me know if you ever need anything." Again, "Let me know if you ever need anything." That's more than English. That's kindness. Language is useful. Kindness makes it memorable. Sometimes we focus so much on vocabulary that we forget why people communicate in the first place. Not to sound intelligent, to connect. Connection is always more important than perfection. Now, let's imagine you're traveling. Maybe you're at an airport. Maybe you're waiting for your flight. The departure board changes. People look up at the same time. You look at the person next to you and smile. I hope there are no delays. Let's practice. I hope there are no delays. Again, I hope there are no delays. It's a sentence you'll hear all over the world. Airports, train stations, bus terminals. People often share the same hope. When something affects everyone, it becomes an easy topic. A few minutes later, you notice someone looking a little confused. They're checking the signs again and again. You politely ask, "Do you know when we arrive?" Repeat after me. Do you know when we arrive? Again, do you know when we arrive? Or perhaps you need help yourself. That's perfectly okay. Asking questions isn't a sign of weak English. It's a sign that you're communicating, and that's the goal, not perfection. Communication. Sometimes the shortest questions are the most useful. Now imagine you're already on the train. The journey will take several hours. The person beside you puts a book away. You smile. Do you travel often? Let's practice. Do you travel often? Again, do you travel often? People usually enjoy talking about places they've visited. Maybe they tell you about a beautiful city. Maybe they recommend a restaurant. Maybe they share a funny travel story. And all of that started with 6 simple words. Isn't that amazing? We often think conversations need big beginnings, but they almost never do. They begin quietly, one sentence, one smile, one shared moment, and then they grow naturally. That's exactly how language works. Not one huge step, many small ones. One conversation today, another next week, another next month, until one day, starting a conversation feels as natural as saying hello, and that's the moment you're working toward. Not speaking perfect English, speaking comfortably. There's a big difference. Take a moment and think about that. Comfort is much more powerful than perfection because comfortable people keep talking. Perfect people often stay silent. And if you keep talking, you keep improving. That's how confidence is built. Not in one day, but one conversation at a time. Can I tell you a little secret? For a long time, I thought a good conversation meant talking all the time. If there was silence, I believed I had failed. Maybe you felt that way too. You say something, the other person answers, then everything becomes quiet. And you start thinking, I need to say something, anything, very quickly. But here's what I learned. Silence isn't your enemy. Silence is part of every good conversation. Think about talking with a close friend. Sometimes you both look outside the window. Sometimes you both take a sip of coffee. Sometimes nobody speaks for a few seconds. Does it feel uncomfortable? Usually not, because comfortable people don't fear silence. They simply let the conversation breathe. The same is true in English. You don't have to fill every second with words. Sometimes a smile says enough. Sometimes a short sentence is all you need. Imagine you're sitting in a small cafe. Your drink finally arrives. You take one sip and smile. You quietly say, "This coffee is really good." Let's say that together. This coffee is really good. Again, this coffee is really good. The person next to you smiles. I know it's my favorite place. Now you have another chance. You could ask, do you come here often? Let's practice. Do you come here often? Again, do you come here often? That's one of those questions that feels easy. It doesn't ask for anything personal. It simply continues the conversation. Maybe the answer is, almost every Saturday, or it's actually my first time. If someone says it's their first time, You could smile and say, "You picked a good place." Simple, friendly, natural. That's how conversations grow, one sentence at a time. Now imagine you're walking through a local market. There are fresh vegetables, flowers, people carrying bags, children laughing. You stop to look at some fruit. Another customer is standing beside you. You smile and say, "Everything looks so fresh today." Repeat after me. Everything looks so fresh today. Again, everything looks so fresh today. Notice what happened. You didn't ask a question. You made a friendly comment. Comments are often easier than questions because they don't put pressure on anyone. The other person can answer or simply smile. Both are perfectly fine. Now, let's imagine you're waiting inside a bookstore. It's quiet, peaceful. Someone is looking at the same shelf as you. You hold up a book and ask, "Have you read this one?" Let's practice together. Have you read this one? Again, have you read this one? Maybe they have, maybe they haven't. Either answer gives you something to talk about. Real conversations aren't planned. They're discovered. You discover them little by little, one small moment after another. You know, one of my favorite things about learning English isn't learning new words. It's realizing that people are very similar. Whether you're in London, Sydney, New York, or anywhere else, people smile when you're kind. People appreciate good manners. People enjoy being listened to. Those things don't change. Good communication isn't only about language. It's about making another person feel comfortable. That's something every learner can do, even with basic English. Sometimes I read comments from learners who say, "Alex, I'm afraid people will laugh at my English." I understand that feeling. I really do. But let me ask you something. Have you ever laughed at someone for trying to speak your language? Probably not. Most people don't. Most people admire the effort. They see courage, not mistakes. And if someone isn't patient, that's not the right person to judge your progress. Don't let one bad experience stop you from having 100 good ones. Every confident speaker you admire started exactly where you are, with simple words, simple sentences, and a lot of mistakes. Mistakes aren't proof that you're failing. They're proof that you're speaking. And speaking is exactly what helps you improve. So the next time you're nervous, don't try to sound perfect. Try to sound friendly, smile, make eye contact, say hello. Notice something around you. Then say one simple sentence. That's enough, because confidence doesn't appear before you speak. Confidence appears because you speak. One conversation gives you confidence for the next one, then the next, then the next, until one day you stop thinking about English and you simply enjoy talking to people. I hope that day comes very soon for you. Actually, I don't hope. I believe it will. Because you're here, you're listening, you're practicing, and every episode you finish is another step forward. Maybe you don't notice it today, but one day you'll start a conversation without even thinking. And afterward, you'll smile, not because your English was perfect, but because it felt natural. That's a wonderful feeling, and I can't wait for you to experience it. Before we finish today's episode, I'd like you to remember something. At the beginning of this episode, I asked you a question. Have you ever wanted to start a conversation, but you didn't know what to say? Maybe your answer was yes. Maybe you remembered a moment at work, a moment at school, a moment in a cafe, or maybe while you were traveling. Today, we've visited all of those places together. We've been in a coffee shop. We've waited at a bus stop. We've walked through a neighborhood. We've been at a party. We've traveled on a train. And in every place, the conversation began the same way. Not with perfect English. Not with difficult words. Just one simple sentence. That's all. I think that's something many learners forget. We often believe confidence comes first, then we speak. But life usually works the other way around. We speak first. Then confidence slowly follows. Every small conversation teaches you something. Maybe you learn a new word. Maybe you hear a new expression. Maybe you discover that people are kinder than you expected. And little by little, English stops feeling like a school subject. It starts feeling like part of your life. That's the goal. Not to memorize hundreds of phrases, but to use them naturally. To smile without feeling nervous. To ask a simple question without translating it in your head. To enjoy meeting new people, because language was never meant to stay inside a notebook. Language was made for people, for stories, for laughter, for helping someone, for asking questions, for sharing ideas, for saying hello, and sometimes for making a stranger feel like a friend. So the next time you leave your house, I want you to try something, just once. Find one small opportunity. Maybe you're buying coffee. Maybe you're waiting in line. Maybe you're getting into a taxi. Maybe you're walking your dog. Look around. Smile. Then say one simple sentence. Not because your English is perfect, but because you're practicing. Maybe you say, "Busy today, isn't it?" Maybe you ask, "How was your weekend?" Maybe you say, "Nice weather today." It doesn't matter which sentence you choose. What matters is that you say it. That's your challenge for today. One conversation, one smile, one simple beginning. And if it goes well, wonderful. If it feels a little awkward, that's okay too, because every conversation makes the next one easier. Learning English isn't about becoming someone different. It's about becoming more comfortable being yourself. In another language, I really believe that. And I hope that every episode we share together helps. You get one step closer to that feeling. If today's episode helped you even a little, I'd love to know. Tell me in the comments. What's one simple sentence you want to use this week? Write it in English. Don't worry if it's not perfect. Just write it. I'll be reading your comments, and I always enjoy seeing your progress. And if you're enjoying these episodes, don't forget to subscribe to Learn English Daily. Every week, we'll practice real English together. Slowly, clearly, and naturally, because learning English doesn't have to feel stressful. It can feel calm. It can feel enjoyable. And it can become part of your everyday life. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I'm Alex. This is Learn English Daily. Take care of yourself. Keep listening. Keep speaking. Keep believing in your progress. And remember, every great conversation starts with one simple sentence. I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.